Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent lockdowns have drastically altered the daily lives of billions of people throughout the world. It has had a particularly strong impact on digital channels, with many people turning to the internet as a result of numerous stores closing and customers being forced to stay at home. So, what will be the long-term consequences? Will people return to traditional media, or has the crisis hastened the shift to digital? To address these concerns, please join me welcome the presence of CMO panelists and our moderator, Mrs. Kate, Managing Director of Publicist Communication.
Hello to everyone who are attending our panel discussion today. So we really have a very relevant topic to discuss with our panelists about evolving consumer behavior as a consequence of this COVID pandemic. Before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Kate, and I'm the Group Managing Director of Publicist Communications. I'm privileged to be leading globally award-winning and renowned creative agencies, namely Publicis, Libernet, Saatchi & Saatchi, and MSL. And we are partnering with great iconic brands. I'm so delighted to be moderating this panel with seasoned marketing leaders in this country. And I believe that the audience will derive valuable learnings from our marketing experts across different industries, from food and beverage, from beauty, to automotive, lubricant industry, and of course, the backbone of our economy, banking and financial services. So may I ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves? And let's start with ladies first, Ms. Tu, then Ms. Ha, Mr. Hip, and then Mr. Rohit.
Thank you, Kate. My name is Tu Thai. I'm the CMO for Techcombank, one of the leading banking in Vietnam. We are very excited to join the panel today for the discussion shaping up the future. And at the mission of leading the digital transformation for banking services in Vietnam, and with our brand promise of Be Greater, I would like to be greater together with you today. Nice to meet you all.
Voi choi moi ngai.
All right.
Okay, so hi everyone. So my name is Ha. I'm a marketing director of L'Oreal Vietnam. So this is the first time L'Oreal joined this session today for the MMA's award. So I'm very excited to be here to hear a lot of and learn a lot of news perspective from different industry. So thanks for having me here today.
And Hip?
Hello, everyone. My name is Hip. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing Support for Nestle Vietnam. I'm sure that you are very familiar with Milo, with Nescafe, with Maggi, with Activia, with KitKat, with Nan, with many more brands, from Nestle Vietnam. I'm very happy to be at this at this forum for the first time, and look forward for really very valuable sharing with all of you.
Thank you, Hip. Hi, I'm Rohit Talwar, Marketing Director for Castrol in Vietnam. Really happy and excited to join this diverse set of leaders in the country and look forward to the discussion today.
Great. Thank you, dear panelists, for introducing yourselves. So I think the audience is very lucky to have all of you, and I'm so privileged to be talking to you today. Just to give the audience a context of what we will be discussing, right? We're going to be talking about this new era of disruption. The theme of MMA is shaping the future. Well, actually, the pandemic has pushed the world further into the future at breakneck speed. We are like riding a hyper-speed bullet train right now. In Southeast Asia, the changes that were expected to take place for over half a decade happened in just 1 year. Of course, driven by the radical shifts in consumption habits brought by the COVID pandemic. And as we are experiencing right now, Vietnam's assertive fight against COVID has led to abrupt lockdowns across the country. And as consequence to this, a new consumer way of life has undoubtedly emerged. And now Vietnam is planning for the upcoming deployment of living with COVID strategy. The country would eventually start opening up soon. Yet, this may not mean that the disruption is over, as it could just be the beginning. So this panel discussion will be navigating through the consumer behavioral impacts of the pandemic and which of these changes are transient and which ones are here to stay. So let me start the question to all the panelists. With Vietnamese consumers' increased time at home, we've seen a tidal wave of changes in the way they consume goods, the way they buy, the channels where they buy, and how they pay. In your category, since you guys are coming from different sectors of the industry, what are the significant changes on your consumer's purchase journey? Or for banking and finance, changes on your customers' acquisition engagement that were impacted by this COVID pandemic? I think I'm interested to know specifically first on the lubricant industry. Mr. Rohit, maybe you can start answering this question.
Thank you, Kate. And I think this is a really great place to start and kick things off. In the lubricant category, consumption happens at the workshops or the garages or service stations as they are known, but consumers choose the brand. The pandemic's impact for us was seen in the emergence of new touchpoints and specifically time spent online, with audiences engaging in a very different set of activities versus what we've seen before the pandemic. Let's take the example of gaming. Globally, gaming is now a $150 billion industry, bigger than both music and movies combined, and that's really substantial. Let's circle back now to Vietnam and see how relevant it is for us here. At the end of 2020, 40 million consumers in Vietnam were actively involved in gaming, which means almost every alternate person in the country is involved in gaming or esports, and that's a big number. And if we look at what's happened during the pandemic period, the growth of gaming has been quite sensational. And in fact, the number is now double the number it was about 2.5 years back, making this a very, very significant new touch point. And I think some of the work that we've done has reflected this in our media choices, with the leading brand presence in gaming or esports that we had over the course of 2021. And it was quite successful for us with fairly high engagement rates that actually moved both brand and business metrics forward. So I think that's one big shift and the emergence of some of these new touch points. I think another critical piece at a time like this, where we see both employment and earning opportunities impacted, is to continue to demonstrate value very strongly for our brands. And from a premium brand perspective, I think some of the things that we looked at was how can we deliver better value to consumers by bringing in the latest technology at the top tier at very, very attractive pricing. And we found that consumers were actually willing to pay for that. And some of our new launches, like the launch of an ultimate range in our motorcycle category, has been very, very successful.
Thank you so much. And I think that gaming is really, really interesting, right? Because people are forced to stay inside due to the pandemic. And naturally, people will be looking for ways to entertain themselves and maintain their social connections. So they started immersing into this world of gaming. Although it's been popular, it's just skyrocketed. And I think it's interesting how Castrol was able to leverage this and then bringing the brand inside this another world that people are actually in. So that's interesting. Thank you so much. Ms. Ha, maybe you can share some of the changes that happen in the beauty industry.
I think for L'Oreal, I think it's unsurprisingly to see the boomings of the e-coms and the SOCOM in recent months due to the COVID pandemics. But what is really eye-opening to us is the change and the shift of the way the consumer shops. So traditionally, you will see the consumer purchase journey will start from the awareness to the consideration, to the trials, and then purchase and then repurchase, right? But during the pandemic, we can see that the powers of the content that drive the commerce. So the contents which able to, create attentions and triggers the considerations, and then and it can covers can deliver the authentic product reviews, same as the way you experience at the trial at the store. So if that content is able to deliver those messages, then you can see the instant purchase and from the consumer. So we clearly see the powers of the great content that drive the commerce. So for example, like when we launched Maybelline's and the Garnier skincare category in the past 2 or 3 months, we clearly see that we create a series of the content, and then you can imagine like just over a night, right? We are run out of stock across all the platform, e-com and Shopees, and there's 100 of reminders about the new products. So that really remind us about about the power of the content that really drive for the commerce one. So I think that is one of the interesting that we found out in the past 2 or 3 months.
That is also great, right? It's like how you are bringing that offline experience to online, because before people will go to the beauty stores trying out the makeup and all of this, and now you're able to bring that experience online in such an engaging way. I think that's where it's heading. The beauty industry is also heading. That's interesting.
Yeah,
yes, and Hip, on food and beverage industry, how is it changing?
There's a lot of changes, I think so. Regarding the shifts of the consumer journey from the Nestle point of view, we are looking at two things, basically two things. One is the thing that are the certainties, and the others are the things that are uncertainties. The certainties are the thing that it is happening no matter COVID. But then, like COVID can help, can help speeding it up, or like slow it down the progress of the thing. So there are different driving forces that are certainty. So first is the buyer power. Then you can easily see that people more and more focus in health and nutrition. And then people more focus, during the pandemic, more on big pack and multi-pack, for the convenience.
Right.
The second thing is the supplier power. Yeah, we see the modern trade is expansion, beyond the key cities. And we also see, as Ms. Hans already, pointed out, the growth of e-commerce and the offline to online business model, and also the rural is still a huge big opportunity for us. And then the third driving force is the threat of substitution. That means on the hybrid categories, like for example like the juicy milk, that it is starting to get into the consumer's repertoire. The last driving forces are the threat of new entries, as well as the competitive rivalry in the FMCG in food and beverage is really high, because we still have more smaller players, that are more aggressive with innovation and promotion push. And because they can accept the lower margins, right. So they are more and more aggressive in terms of the competition. The other thing is the uncertainty. The uncertainty is that we look at that as the different possible scenarios that it is depending on the situation. As you see, we look at that, by two dimensions. One dimension is regarding the economy go up or going down. Yeah. As you see, the other day, we just got the report that our GDP Vietnam, Q3, going down 6.2% in Q3. Yeah. Which is the lowest, in history. And then, but then, okay, on the one hand is the economy going up and going down. On the other hand is the movement from restriction or freedom to movement. then we see, you know, like where Vietnam it can be. And then it has, you know, like a very clear implications on, you know, like a few things that it is still very uncertainty. First one is that you see the kid that it is under 16 years old, our, you know, like target audience are the most vulnerable. Yeah, the kids under 16 years old because they are not yet vaccinated, right? And then, you know, the second thing is the travel and the on-trade business, you know, like is slowly to recover. And then, you know, like the in-home revolution right now, you know, like people not moving, you know, that it is moving in all the in-home consumption. And the last thing is that, you know, like maybe, you know, like the affordability, you know, like will stay for much longer. So those are the things that it is from our point of view.
Right. I think that those are very interesting shifts, especially that food and beverage is an essential, right? And all these things are happening. And I think most important that we've seen is that during this disruption, convenience, accessibility, and value are most important to consumers. And how do you make sure that the products and services are available to them? And it's interesting across all, from supply chains to manufacturing, everything is impacted. So thank you for sharing that. Now let's go to banking and finance. Now that all the bank branches are, you know, are closed, or physical branches are closed, how are the changes in acquisition and engagement of your customers in banking?
Yes, you're correct, right? So I think banking and services, sometimes that people need the interaction, physical interaction, right? So you have to go to the branch to meet with the RM, relationship, a manager. You need to open the account, you need to transfer the money in there. So with the pandemic, that this is also the limitation, yeah? But then we have to change and shift the habit. So everything now need to be online. And for banking and services, I think that service, we need to not only everything happening online, but there's something that sometimes that we have to find a solution for them on the online. For example, if they want to do the landing, how can you find a solution? If they can do on the other document and things like that, right? Or if they want to check on this, open the account, we also have the eKYC that they can stay online and then do all the identification and certification and so on and so forth to do it. So I think it's hard in order to do so, but with the customer centricity, we need to serve and we need to provide the services and the solution for our customer. So I think we need to shift that mindset and also serve them as good as possible, still follow on the compliance.
Right. And I think it also helps that prior to this pandemic, Techcombank was already at the forefront of digital transformation. So you have all the infrastructures ready. So when this happened, we see that it was smoothly managed. I think that was the case for Techcombank. Yeah, so I think a lot of this shifts, right? And all this shift has brought explosive growth on digital spending of people on e-commerce especially. And there's an overall surge of e-commerce sales. And they're saying that Southeast Asia is poised as the new e-commerce powerhouse, with Vietnam expected to grow by almost 5 times within 5 years. Also, there's a study showing that Vietnamese digital shopping satisfaction score jumped significantly from 20% last year to 65% this year. So this suggests that the e-commerce players are actually starting to gain traction with refined approach of their customer experiences. So with this surge, I think I've mentioned that I see Techcombank is the forefront of digital transformation. For the other brands from L'Oreal, Nestle, and Castrol, how is your organization marketing strategies geared up for this rapid upsurge of digital economy? And what are the challenges and what are the resources and skill set that your team is accelerating to swiftly adapt to this? And it would be great if you can also share, given this digital disruption, what are the new success metrics that have emerged out of this that you're incorporating as you plan for 2022? Maybe Anhip, you can address this question.
Yeah, I'd love to. This is, you know, like as I mentioned in your first question, it is a certainty. Means that the COVID is just accelerating the progress of it at the end of the day. And then, so this is not something we reactively do when COVID happened. It is, we actually proactively deploying the digitalization acceleration as our core strategy. For this, we always start with the why first, with our purpose of unlocking the power of food to enhance the quality of life for Vietnamese consumers today and then the generation to come. And then this is measured by, what Ms. Tu already, talked about is the consumer centricity. And also, measured by, our scores of penetration, both urban and rural. So, for that, we just embrace the omni-channel approach to engage the consumer with personalized experience at scale. And also, at the same time, our structure of e-business that we have the approach of omni-channel as well. So that it is not only e-commerce, but then it is digital media, it is data and CRM, and then, e-commerce itself. So all together, it is, an omni-channel approach. And I think, from the day one of the forum, I have already, had a presentation about, the omni-channel approach.
Right. Yes, I think you are right, Anhip, and I've seen how Nestle has been also leading this digital transformation. It's the orchestration of your ecosystem is pretty advanced, and I think also I've seen also how Nestle is geared up for this this acceleration of digitalization. Thank you for sharing that. And I know also L'Oreal is also investing very heavily. I think almost 100% in digital. Can you share more, Ms. Ha?
Yes. So for us, it's 100% on digital for sure.
Yep.
And in terms of the e-commerce, we always consider as the leapfrogs strategies. So for L'Oreal, I think we are very, especially for L'Oreal Vietnam, we are very proud to be one of the, the star country that represent for total L'Oreal APAC to be the first pioneer countries to take or lead all the new initiative under the e-com and the SOCOMs. And to be very frank with you, because e-com is already become a very big part of the L'Oreal already, and then so it's no longer just we no longer treat it as a separate commercial channels. So it's always integrated as a part of the marketing strategies from the marketing activity to the innovations and also in terms of the assortment offering to the consumers. So. In terms of the resource that we are mentioning, because it is, I think the reason why the other country or the APAC choose Vietnam as the leading countries is not because of the Vietnam is a high consumption digital country, but it is also because of the L'Oreal Vietnam. We build a very, how to say, e-house in-house. Right? We build our own data infrastructures and we take control of our destiny. So in one way, we also be very careful in choosing a partner to have the win-win partnership with. But on the other hand, we are building our own teams, and they are really the teams that dedicated to drive for the e-com performance in the company. So yeah.
Very progressive, very progressive. Mr. Rohit, I'm curious how the lubricant industry is adapting to the digital economy.
Thanks, Kate. I think the work at Nestle and L'Oreal sounds really exciting. For us, I think we're using innovation to enable better experiences, and I think that's our broader view on digital and e-commerce. The year, I would say this has been a period of experimentation for us, and we've run some pilots on O2O, including leveraging offers online through platforms like gaming, which I spoke about in the previous section. And we've actually been able to use some of these initiatives to drive higher footfalls and conversions in store. And one of the things you talked about was metrics. And I think some of the metrics that we are now looking at is some of these online to offline conversion ratios and growing footfalls through digital initiatives. And some of the pilots that we've run have actually proven to be very, very successful, given us very encouraging results. And that will help us build this into a broader omni-channel ecosystem-based approach that Hip also spoke about. I just want to add one point. I think we will continue to see a very strong role for brick and mortar purchases. And while everybody is very, very bullish on e-commerce and we are seeing absolutely phenomenal growths, I think one sort of watch out for me is in most categories as lockdowns lift across the world, we are seeing consumers return to stores. And if I look at data in markets like the US and the UK, actually more than 4 out of 5 purchases are now happening back in stores as well. So it's critical to sort of have that broader lens and role for the channel vis-a-vis, let's say, traditional brick and mortar channels, but certainly very exciting territory, very rich and fertile, growing fast. And we're learning, I would say we're learning at a rapid pace, looking to deploy in the future as well.
Right. So it's interesting as well because some countries in the West, they've opened up. So it would be interesting to see learnings from how the behavioral changes happening there and what have returned actually. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Rohit. Now, in the interest of time, I'll jump to the closing of transaction and commerce, which is through digital payments that has dethroned the king cash. As we know before, the previous barrier that we're experiencing on the rise of commerce is this cash on delivery preference. But given the COVID restrictions and safety first, contactless priority of our consumers, the fintech and e-wallet adoption rates almost doubled, especially digital payments. We have over 75 million Vietnamese consumers right now who are digital consumers. So this is a question to the CMO of Techcombank, Ms. Tu. As the leading digital bank in Vietnam, what are the innovations and technologies that Techcombank has accelerated to fuel this? And if there are specific products and services that you have developed to address these needs brought by COVID pandemic?
Yeah, I'm pleased to answer that question, Kate. So I think it's also linked back to Techcombank vision and mission, right? Gen banking, Gen life. Gen banking meaning that provides some for customer in order to change their life better. And then for that, we want to become greater, right? So Techcombank, our customer is not only retail banking, but it's also corporate banking. So I will start with corporate banking first, right? So payment is also very important, and you know that on the business like SME and it's also require a lot of things that we need to transfer that payment via online, right? So what we did actually is that we innovate the certificate authorized signature so that you can pay directly online. You don't need to go to the branch in order to do so. We also established the call center to support our business, our corporate banking business. We also can do the loan payment via our mobile right away rather than doing it offline, right? So I think those things also support our customer during the pandemic and then move everything digitally. For retail banking, like I mentioned earlier, we would like customer just stay home and then can open their account via eKYC online at home. So I think it's also very, very good. We're also taking care for our customer buying bank assurance product. Provide them the digital service rather than offline activities or action they need to do. And I think that moving forward soon, we will excite the market with the whole platform that we're repairing so that we can also provide the seamless experience in terms of payment for our corporate banking customer and also retail customer. So wait and see what's going on.
Very exciting. Yeah, I think, banking and finance is fueling all this digital economy. So with the innovations that Techcombank is actually deploying, I think the country will be accelerating digital at a really, really high speed. Now, going to my last question, I'll combine actually my two questions into one question, which is life post or with COVID, right? Because right now we don't know if we have to live with COVID. So we know that some consumptions and customer engagement activities are likely to move out of home. Cinemas will open, bars, outlets will open, and restrictions will be easing up. Yet people are saying that some will remain at home. This home-centric lifestyle may still persist. The hybrid work from home may still become the norm. And of course, health and safety first would remain as a priority. So my question to all of you, do you see year 2022 as an opportunity or adversity? And if there's one thing that you would like to impart to our audience on the learning that you have taken from what happened this year, what would it be to outlive this pandemic victoriously? I'll start with Mr. Rohit.
Thanks, Kate. Great question again. I think for me, the evolution of the virus continues to be unpredictable, right? However, we know that with vaccinations, economies can move forward. And as our vaccinations scale up, we will see restrictions ease, like you said, and move closer to life before the lockdown. I think the fundamental need for human-to-human contact and connection will not change. And the desire to go back to life as it was won't go away as well. And we've seen this play out in other countries as well. Now, to what extent that will happen in 2022 depends on various factors in Vietnam. But personally, I do see it as a year of opportunity, given the progress we have seen with vaccinations in recent months, which means progress will continue enabled by movement. Coming to your last question, I think for me, the biggest learning is be bold when others are fearful. And if there's one message I'd like to share, it's really about consistent brand investments, even in the face of adversity and things like lockdowns and some of the other challenges that we've seen. Consistency yields results, and this is true across categories, across markets. We see it time and time again, and the pandemic has just proven that once more. Back to you.
Thank you. Now I'll pass it on to Anhit.
Yeah, I think there's a sort of at-home revolution going on, as we mentioned, and there's a lot of opportunity coming with it. And then the life of us going forward together with COVID requires us to be well prepared. With all the certainties and all the uncertainties. So we see that, like insight only are just not enough. We need to adapt the strategic foresight way of thinking. And it is all about, like learning from the future and apply it to today's business challenges. So, like in short, like the most important learning I'd like to impart today is that it is not about being right. It is about, being prepared, like to outlive the pandemic victoriously.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Ha?
So I think with the trajectories of the vaccinations in Vietnam recently, we still see some adversity for some of the specific category, like can weight category, like a makeup category. We still see some difficulty, a little bit difficulty in Q4 this year, but we clearly see and very optimistic about the future in 2022 because I still believe that it will open the COVID will open a new era, especially for the digital transformation. And when people get used to it, they feel so comfortable and they feel so convenient with the the shopping experience. So I still believe that it will still be a very bright futures for L'Oreal Vietnam. And one of the key learning during the COVID pandemic, so for us is this own way learn and unlearn and very agile. We did a lot of test and learn and run a lot of pilot, and then whether it's success and fail, but we take a learning on that, and then we scale it up. It's successful. So it's all about learn and unlearn attitude and mindset. And think of the day after tomorrow, because digital is changing so fast. So you have to think ahead of the as a marketer, you have to think ahead of the consumers in order to drive the trend.
Thank you, Ms. Tu.
I love all the comments already. So I think it's very good advice, and I think that I have no more to say except that I agree with you all. I would like to touch base on the mental health care for us. So how can we ensure that we well taken care of ourselves and our family and our staff during that pandemic, right? And live positively. I'm the marathoner, so I really encourage we living a healthy lifestyle and yeah, take care for us, for ourselves. So I just would like to end that with the mental health care that we should pay attention.
That's beautiful. What a diverse, learnings and words of wisdom from our leaders today. Thank you very much. And I can feel so much optimism for 2022. Honestly, we don't exactly know what the future holds. Emerging well from this COVID-19 will be about positioning our brands and products on for how people will be spending differently and where they will buy. But it is prevalent that digital will become ever more crucial. And most importantly, it is a moment in time to define the role of how our brands and products can help make lives people better. And as what Ms. Tu has shared, how can we add value to them, this mental health thing that's ongoing, right? How can our brands play a role into that? Again, we cannot predict the future, but we can help shape it. Thank you very much to all panelists today. Thank you everyone in the audience watching us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kate, for your moderator. And also thank you all the panelists for your wonderful sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, and now please welcome Mrs. Jessica Phan, Country Manager NMA Vietnam, Myanmar, and Cambodia to share some thoughts before we end the morning sessions. And please welcome her.
Thank you so much, Ms. Samyan. Chúng tôi muốn gửi lời cảm ơn chân thành tới tất cả những speaker đã mang đến những thông tin vô cùng hữu ích trong buổi sáng ngày hôm nay. Và trong buổi chiều ngày hôm nay chắc chắn sự hứa hẹn những thông tin hữu ích khác nữa và chúng ta cũng có 10 session đang chờ đợi tất cả mọi người. So actually we're having more than 10 sessions is waiting for you with a lot of great information that we'll be looking for. And we're looking forward to see you again soon in the afternoon. And right now we will have a great lunch. So thank you and goodbye.